Why is a president who wants to sign a peace deal in Pakistan being undermined by his own Secretary of War, threatening strikes at a moment's notice? April 2026, President Trump says he may go to Pakistan to sign a peace accord with Iran. His Secretary of Defense stands beside the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and says America is ready to strike Iran at a moment's notice. Dr. Trita Parsi, foremost US-Iran scholar and co-founder of the Quincy Institute, calls this not contradictory within the logic of how the US pursues negotiations, but reveals what happens when you scratch the surface. The surface shows concessions from both sides. Beneath it, a war lobby preparing to sabotage the peace. Parsi, author of Treacherous Alliance and Losing an Enemy, explains the architecture. The United States always seeks to have a military threat very present, very prominent, thinking that that is what will make the other side move. But in this case, the threat has been defeated by Trump himself through this attempt at a war to force Iran to surrender. Instead, Iran actually scored a strategic victory. Yet the lobby that has prevented US-Iran rapprochement for 3 decades remains active. Parsi identifies them. The Israelis are the primary opponents of lifting these sanctions. Their goal is Iran's prolonged weakening, achieved through war or constant degrading of a country through decades of sanctions. From their standpoint, it is bad enough that Trump has ended the war and accepted a ceasefire. But for Trump to then actually lift the sanctions, which would enable Iran to live up to its full potential, would be a devastating strategic defeat. The historical pattern is documented. In Parsi's Treacherous Alliance, he reveals how Israel flipped its Iran strategy in 1991-1992. Throughout the 1980s, Israel sold arms to Iran, convinced America to arm Iran, violated US embargoes to provide spare parts, because they were terrified that Saddam Hussein would win the war against Iran. But once the Soviet Union collapsed and Iraq was defeated, the Israelis increasingly started to view Iran not as a partner, but as a rival. Sustaining the US-Iran tensions was a critical element of the Israeli strategy. And this is precisely why Parsi warns the Israelis will do everything they can to sabotage any deal that Trump would strike with Iran. The mechanism is proven. We saw that the Israelis have sought to prevent diplomacy when diplomacy is happening. They have sabotaged diplomacy. If they fail to sabotage it and a deal has been reached, they've done everything they can to get the US to cheat on the deal, to walk out of the deal, which is what they succeeded in doing by getting Trump to leave the JCPOA in 2018. Now Trump faces the same choice. If he lifts sanctions, secures nuclear concessions, and ends the enmity, he's going to have quite a headache with the Israelis, and he's going to have to put pressure on them like he's never put pressure on them before. The alternative is a new status quo. No sanctions relief, but Iran controls Hormuz and collects tolls. The Israelis will not be happy, but it is much better from their standpoint than a deal that actually lifts the sanctions. Parsi notes this would be not a good scenario for the Iranians, but also not a good scenario for the US, which would lose the opportunity to fundamentally change the geopolitics of the Middle East. And finally, get out of the Middle East after 20 years of promises. The architecture of sabotage is already visible. Netanyahu, facing a lot of pressure from President Donald Trump, first on Iran and now on Lebanon, has seen his plan for a completely new security environment, defeating Hezbollah, setting Iran back 50, 60, 70 years, collapse into strategic defeat. Israeli media report the Lebanon ceasefire is extremely unpopular with Israelis who see it as surrender. Yet Trump's own team sends mixed signals. J.D. Vance dramatically exits Pakistan after 15-hour negotiations but never said that diplomacy is over. The blockade of Iranian ports continues as tactics within that negotiation. And Parsi's assessment of military appetite after 50 days is definitive. Not at all. The idea that Trump, having now experienced what war actually looked like, being on the verge of seeing his entire presidency destroyed by this war, would be so foolish to go back into this war now. When he finally has achieved his key objective, which is to get into a ceasefire, I find it unlikely. But unlikely is not impossible. You can't rule it out because Trump is unpredictable, because the pressure from Israel is immense. The Pakistan trip, if it happens, would be such a shocking rebuke to the power politics of the Beltway, not just the Israeli lobby, but the power politics of the GCC countries. A deal would enable Iran providing cheaper energy to India, to Pakistan, and to Turkey, creating a new trading relationship that challenges the ascendancy of the GCC countries, Saudi Arabia, and the Emiratis. Parsi is hopeful. If this is the decision that Trump has made, and he, unlike Obama, does not just lift secondary sanctions, but lifts primary sanctions, it will be very difficult to reimpose those. The Saudis, mature enough to adjust, might recognize that interdependence and collective security, inclusive security, would be a fantastic thing, moving towards an era of peace. But this requires Trump to withstand the lobby that has defeated every previous attempt. The same lobby that turned Iran from partner to enemy in 1992. The same lobby that killed the JCPOA in 2018. The same lobby that now pressures Netanyahu to resist Trump's Lebanon ceasefire. The question is not whether Trump wants peace. It is whether the lobby that has captured American Middle East policy for 3 decades will let him have it. What do you think? Is Trump's Pakistan peace trip the courageous breakthrough that ends 47 years of enmity? Or is it the setup for another sabotage, where the lobby that killed the JCPOA will find new ways to ensure US-Iran tensions survive any signed agreement? Drop your thoughts below.